Matty Fresh on the track up at State. And I'm bringing to you live my boys Alec and Nate, Tequila Ty, Jay, Nelly, and Zillin in the building. So kick it back, pour the drink. We chillin' because I'm boozing and betting and ballin' like I'm 2-6 in the blue kicks. Watch me move quick. Yeah, this the blueprint. So who's getting involved? Welcome into the show. This is Booze, Bets, and Ball, baby.
All right. Hopefully everyone could stay on this time. So as I said, we did a 20-minute video last week, and I just cannot post it because everyone kept leaving. So I went back and pretty much looked through the transcript and then just read it off by myself. So
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, we are not doing that this week.
Did you do it in everybody's voice?
No, I don't have that much in me. But yeah, so this is the big one finally. After 4 weeks of nonsense, Penn State gets to host Oregon. Oregon at number 6. Penn State dropped a spot after being on bye last week to number 3, which I don't know. It doesn't matter. I just thought it was interesting when they did it and the team they did it for. So it was Miami who beat Florida, but Florida stinks. So I think if there was a time to make that move, I don't know if that was it. But we get 3 first 6 in the Whiteout. Saturday night, 7:30 on NBC. Game day. Will Bill there. So that is interesting that they picked that over Alabama and Georgia. But when it comes to those two schools, I know they have other options to pick from. Maybe they'll be back for Penn State, Indiana if things go well. We'll see. But let's get into this here. If I could share my screen, which is always an issue. All right. For fuck's sake. There we go. So Penn State right now, a 3.5-point favorite. That was originally 6.5 over the summer, but has come down by a field goal. If this wasn't a night game in the Whiteout, I'm curious what this line would be. But as it stands, Penn State a little over field goal. Let's just get into it. I mean, what are some factors as the lowest ticket is $400? What are some factors going into this game for you guys? Because I got a bunch, but I want to hear what you guys have, and I'll just kind of separate what I have from what's left.
Go ahead, Justin. You may start, please.
All right. I guess biggest factor in my eyes, second biggest factor is our defensive line, getting pressure on Dante Moore. He's been protected really well. They have a good O-line, and he hasn't really made great play. Like, he's been very consistent, but he hasn't played a great defense yet. And Franklin said that Zane Durant denied Dennis Sutton's going to be playing a lot more. Obviously, they're not going to be rotating as much and keeping our stars in the game as much as possible. So I think that's a big key to the game. With the atmosphere, we really our defense needs to get behind that and get some pressure on them, get some sacks, create some turnovers. And then I guess, obviously, the biggest thing, we got 3 transfer wide receivers. This is when we need them to step up. These games, we haven't had them step up. So this is the biggest opportunity they have. This is why we just bought them all, got them in the portal for 1 year, withdrew.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the game. So those are my 2 key positions.
Okay, that's good. So I don't know. Maybe I'll take the biggest one, which is Drew. I think Drew watched Landon's video for the pregame show an hour ago while I was working out. And what did he say? In 7 games against one of Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, or the playoffs, Drew averages like 150 yards and 1.1 touchdowns and 0.6 interceptions. So got to do better than that this week, I think. And, I'd be interested. What he didn't mention there is the home-away split, but I would venture that he does better at home, generally speaking. So the atmosphere should work in his favor there. And then I do think, last year it was definitely a real thing where the teams traveling cross country did poorly. Generally speaking, we had to pull one out against USC, kind of second half comeback, very big one. We blew Washington out at home, and I know Washington wasn't as good as they were the year before, obviously, but it seems like those teams struggle to travel the 3,000 miles or whatever. So that's got to weigh on Oregon a little bit, and then they're staying in Altoona.
Ohio State didn't play. Ohio State lost that out at Oregon.
Yeah. So to me, it's how well Drew plays, and then is the travel going to affect them? And maybe it's a couple of points here or there or something, but in a game that is as close as it is, where if this was a neutral field game, it would be a pick 'em basically, or maybe even Oregon favored by half a point or something, because the whiteout is, I think, typically about 4 points. That could be enough to swing the game just so.
Yeah, I think Oregon is probably the more talented team from top to bottom, but when you factor in these other things that don't have to really do with the X's and O's, that it's the whiteout, that Oregon's doing the cross-country trip, that it's Dante Moore's first time being tested in a hostile environment, because his only road game was Northwestern, which looked like a high school soccer field. So, he hasn't really been in an environment like this yet in terms of it being hostile. Obviously, they have a great crowd out at Oregon, but those are things that can help Penn State. But there's some things that it's going to come down to the field for the most part. But as you mentioned, that could swing. Even just one possession could be the difference in this game. So if it just swings one, false start where they were thinking about going for it on a 4th and 2 by midfield, and it turns into 4th and 7 and they punt, like that's a big thing. So those little things will add up, and in a game that could be this close, definitely.
Yeah, and almost certainly.
What I will say is,
just real quick there, it's going to take them a couple of drives to settle in at least, right? So even you slow them down for the first, say, 2 drives of the first quarter, and if Penn State can score early there, that helps a lot. And obviously, you would have thought that helped against Ohio State last year, being up 10-0, but we kind of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit too. I saw last night the kind of taunting call came up again that had put Ohio State 4th and 7. So Penn State guys have to play within the atmosphere as well, and cannot be over their heads and doing stupid shit,
Yeah, no, I was like too, and I was thinking about it. They probably win that game if that doesn't happen, because Ohio State goes down and scores on that drive then, which is crazy.
They do,
but but like we just mentioned, like we mentioned, the little things that add up. So in a game like that taunting penalty ended up being pretty much the difference. So you got to just, as you mentioned, stay within yourself. The thing in terms of on the field though, it's pretty obvious Oregon wants to run track meets, notorious track and field school. They want to run, they want to get up big. I know their rush defense has struggled at times this year. Well, if you don't have a good rush defense, the best thing you could do is get up big on opponents early. And they've done that this season. They already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 5 receivers over 110 yards already this season. They're scoring at a high clip. They have 11 receiving touchdowns. These guys, they have 25 touchdowns from scrimmage already. They've played 3 Power 4 opponents, none of them very good, but 3 Power 4 is better than whatever the hell Penn State has played. But they have ran these guys right out of the building in pretty much every case. Northwestern was the only school to kind of stick around, if you want to call it that. But if I'm Penn State, I got to keep this from becoming a track meet. And to do that, the O-line needs to play better as a group. And I just rely on Katron Allen at this point. I know we kind of talked about the Katron Allen versus Nick Singleton thing. We saw what happened when Penn State played a track meet with Oregon in the Big Ten championship game last year. Considering how bad Penn State's receivers were, I thought they did an admirable job of staying in that game to one possession. I think we saw what happens. I don't like Drew Aller in track games for the most part. I thought during that game there was glimpses of excellence, and there are also parts that were reasons why they lost. His couple interceptions were bad. He missed Tyler Warren on a couple of balls over the middle that could have been touchdowns. So I prefer to stay out of the track meet. And I think relying on Katron Allen and getting Nick Singleton going in some capacity, whether it be the screen game or something like that, is going to be big, because I think less possessions, less points is going to help Penn State here.
Yeah. But also, Drew's been playing his best game within the 2-minute drill this year. Like, I know you don't want him to play fast, but he's been playing his best ball when he's been playing fast this year. So I do think in some sort of way we do need to, like, play no huddle and catch their defense off guard if we're going to win this game. We can't just rely only on the run. We got these wide receivers, and now it's time to utilize them. But obviously, their worst part of their defense is their run game. I mean, the defensive line stopping their run game. So we need to get Katron going. Singleton hasn't been doing great. So I think Katron hopefully gets to start. He deserves to start. He's averaging like 8 yards per carry or something crazy. So I just think it's his game. I like first down, run the ball, get 5-6 yards, but we do need to utilize these weapons now with Pena and Hudson. This is a game. I mean, this is it. Really, it sucks to say, but this is kind of our season because I think everybody as Penn State fans, we're not expecting to beat Ohio State until we see it. So you're already kind of counting on one loss. And then if we lose this one, 10-2, Indiana's no give me anymore either without it just killed Illinois. Not to get too ahead of ourselves, but this is kind of start and end in my eyes.
Yep. No, I think if you win this game, you can breathe a little bit easy and you can drop the game to, God, you don't want to say it already, but like you can drop the Ohio State game or something and probably drop one more and still make the playoffs at 10-2 that way. But if you lose this game, then you can only lose. I mean, then you have to win every one except for one, and you can't have a hiccup in there anywhere. So yeah, this becomes if this isn't a must-win game, every game after it is a must-win game. But I was curious when Alec said we're going to rely on the O-line and you only said Katron and you didn't say Nick. I did find that pretty telling, and kind of I would have said the same thing. I do think, getting Singleton involved later in the game, as I think I mentioned it, and you probably read it off in the transcript last week. I don't know, like if the defense is worn down, that's his time to shine, and I'd guess that most of his big runs in his career have come in the second half. So. Let Katron wear these guys out and then bring him in. And, Nelly talked about the 3 transfer wide receivers. Well, you got the tight ends too, can be weapons, especially Reynolds and Dinkins to some extent, but we haven't seen him catch as many balls, but he's definitely the best pass blocker or run blocker, I guess. But Reynolds and Rapelier should be doing some damage. And then the one thing that we haven't seen all year is Drew run, and Landon made a point of this too. I think in the Big Ten championship game, he had some killer runs that mattered, and he's going to have to run again starting this week because the preseason's over, and him protecting himself to some extent is over too, and it's got to be all put on the line now.
Yeah, James Franklin talked about the fact that they were not vanilla on offense. We talked about that too a little bit last week, but I do think there is an uptick in aggression, like you mentioned, like Aller running more deep balls, maybe taking more chances with Ross and Pena down the field. As something I brought up, getting Singleton more involved in other ways that don't include trying to run him between the tackles, doing things to get him out in space and using his speed to his advantage. If the other parts, if he's not mentally there right now, he's not trusting himself, take that part out of it, just let him rip. And the other thing is, I think Korolnicki is in a spot with this offense where we know it likes to be gimmicky and tricky at times. They have enough pieces at each position to do so. Transfer receivers, they have the 2 running backs, they have the 3 tight ends. He has enough personnel where he can be tricky. Now, he doesn't have those 2 versatile guys he had last year in Warren and Perbula, who did the majority of the trickery. I'm wondering if someone comes forward in this game to become that. I know Landon pointed out that Luke Reynolds was also a quarterback in high school, which you know is a thing. Pena has thrown some passes in the past. Quinn Martin, who we haven't seen a lot of yet because he's been banged up. He was the guy that, some people wanted recruited as a receiver. So they might try some different things with him if he's healthy. So lot of different ways to go about this. I think if they feel like they need to dig into the bag of tricks, I think they can, because I think there's enough pieces to do so. Plus, there's 7 or 8 offensive linemen they want to play.
Yeah, right. But I think, I don't know. I think you can still do some of that stuff even without Tyler Warren. Like if you remember last year, some of the direct snaps, like the direct shotgun snaps to him, he wasn't often going to throw the ball, right? So who cares if he was if you have a quarterback back there or not? You have the tight end motion, and then he gets under center and sneaks it, and you protect Drew that way. Like things like that are okay, and you don't have to have a former quarterback run that stuff. So I think they can add some of those wrinkles back in, and you even saw it. I think Northwestern ran that tight end motion snap quarterback tight end sneak or whatever against Oregon this year already. So you can mix these things up and get more of these guys involved. I think as much as anything, though, it's obviously it goes without saying, but execution is going to matter. Drew has to be accurate, 80%. He has to have 80% accuracy. Whether or not he completes 80% of his passes, probably won't. But if he's accurate 80% of the time and he's completing 65 or 70% of his passes, which would give them like 20% drops or something, that's okay, right? We need that. We need him to be on, I think, and that to me is the biggest key to this game. The receivers should be more confident. So if he's throwing the ball accurately, they are going to catch the ball more frequently and do better things with it than the guys did last year.
Yeah, definitely. And, I talked about how if you don't want to play this track meet, you want to, be in possession of the ball, stay ahead of the chains. Can't have many negative plays when you do that. And I'm surprised Oregon's defense hasn't generated a ton of negative plays this season. And in 4 games against, not great teams, 22 TFL, 7 sacks. So a little less than 2 sacks a game and about 5.5 TFLs a game. So, not terrible, but also not eye-popping considering
that's interesting.
More or less some of the worst teams they're going to play this season. So I think you've got to limit those and obviously limit the hits on Aller, especially if you want to see him running a little bit, because if he gets whacked, he might be a little, hesitant to go leave the pocket, and you don't want that to happen. So I think that's another big thing too with the offense is Oregon hasn't generated a ton of negative plays with their defense yet. So don't, start now with them, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, although, I guess our tackles have given up quite a few pressures.
All right, well, let's look.
I think we're having some network issues again.
Yeah, that is the worry. Yeah, I know. That is the worry, just the way the tackles have played. You'd like it to be better. I think now at this point, though, they've played 3 games. They have the bye week. They got to gel. Like it's got to come now. They're used to, they're playing with each other now. There was a gelling process there just because Donka was moving inside and, they were getting used to this new configuration with the O-line. So I think you hope so now. And, Cooper Cousins was rotating in and TJ Shanahan was rotating in. I think maybe they have what they want in terms of a rotation down. And I'm hoping that through 3 games and a bye week, these guys are finally settled in and can get a rhythm going, because you hadn't really seen it yet.
If not now, it's like if it doesn't happen now, you can stop watching and you can just I can go back to watching F1 and root for Max to win the championship, I guess, because nothing else matters. So
right. Last thing I want to touch on, Penn State's defense obviously has not been tested at all. The first team defense has given up 3 points, but we talked about the speed on this defense. And as I mentioned earlier, you're going up against a track meet offense. I think Penn State has a defense equipped to handle this. We saw how explosive Ohio State was last year, and Penn State did a hell of a job handling them because you felt like they had enough athletes. Now you lose Abdul Carter from that equation, but as we mentioned, we think he got faster at linebacker with a healthy Rojas and Amari Campbell. The safeties are at least a push from last year, considering Winston didn't play in that game, and your corners are probably better. Now you're a little worse at defensive end because even though Chaz Coleman is a super freak athlete, he's not Abdul Carter polished as a pass rusher yet. But I think in total, they at least have a defense that can hang with these guys and reduce their speed. Oregon is not, they have a big offensive line, like they can be physical, but that's not really the game they want to play. They want to spread you out and go, gun it. So I think Penn State is equipped to at least stay in the game with that. I don't think it'll be as ugly as the 45 they gave up in the Big Ten championship last year.
Oh God, you better hope not, because we're not winning that game, right? Like that's a loss,
right?
But again, the other thing too is that you have Jim Knowles, and despite what some of the Buckeye fan pages say, he was the defensive coordinator all last year and was the defensive coordinator for the Rose Bowl when they absolutely boxed Oregon, right? So he knows how to play this off against this offense, and I think there's a lot of goodness coming from that, which we didn't have going into the Big Ten championship game last year too. And yeah, like you said, the secondary is deep. They have a lot of weapons, but our secondary is fast and should be equipped to handle that. They haven't yet. I mean, obviously they haven't played anybody, but have not given up a lot in the passing game. The only, the biggest concern was with a running quarterback, and that's not what Dante Moore is. So I don't know. I think I am far less. I mean, Oregon's offense is tremendous, and they have put up monster numbers. But just like on confidence level, I am more confident in our defense going against their offense than our offense.
I agree with that. I think that we've always felt that way about Penn State, but like more so right now with just the way Aller's playing and Singleton struggling a little bit. I think you want to rely on that defense in the run game. Yeah. So makes sense. But
I mean, again, it's like it was when we started this year. Just be 2023 Michigan and run the ball, control the line, find a way to control the line of scrimmage, hold it maintain possession for 35, 38 minutes a game, and limit the offensive possessions by the other team. And that's how you win. That is Penn State's recipe for success. Throw the ball to the tight ends, right? Like that's it. But.
Yeah, and it'll benefit them to get the ball out as soon as possible in most cases. Just let these athletes, because Penn State, look, the running backs, as I mentioned, Singleton, these tight ends, Luke Reynolds especially, if you get them in space and let them roam, they're going to make some plays. I think you got to kind of take the thinking aspect out of it for Aller too. I mentioned that with Singleton, but Aller as well. If he doesn't feel like he's clicking right now, do things that just the easy passes. Start with layups early in this game to get him in a rhythm, and then maybe you could take shots later if needed. But I think to start this game, Kotelnicki just needs to make it easy, get him in a rhythm, get him settled down, because he's someone who, even though it's his home field, he's someone that can get jumpy. And I think getting him in a rhythm early and, relying on Katron early too, and letting him handle the bulk of the responsibilities early. But, just little stuff in the flats and curls to these tight ends, I think will do a lot for Aller's confidence to get him going. And, they need this confidence, not just for this game, but going forward. So I think it's important that, don't ask him to win this game going in. Now there's a, scenario where he has to, and he's to play ball, which you hope it doesn't get to that point, but it could. But I think going into this, you want to make this about the defense and the running backs. And, that is the recipe to beat a highly explosive offense like Oregon, when Penn State's defense is good, but they have not been tested, especially that secondary. AJ Harris has had one ball thrown his way in 3 games. So we think he's very good, but he's not had to do a whole lot yet. And, this is a very deep cornerback room, and you would expect against Oregon, you're going to see a lot more nickel packages. There's going to be, Don DeLuca is not going to be on the field with Amari Campbell and Rojas. I think you're going to get a lot of 4-2-5. 4-2-5s in this game. maybe a couple 4-1-6s, stuff like that. So, you're going to see some unique looks because Oregon, as I mentioned, these receivers are very good. The tight end is also very good. So, Zakee Wheatley in coverage, Tony Rojas in coverage, going to be a big game for them too.
Yep, and that's something else. Brandon Landon talked about is the tight end and called him the best tight end in the country, Sadiq. So that's it's a tall challenge. I think they just have to find a way to not, and it's the whiteout, and Oregon should be on their back foot to start the game. We should not go down big to start the game, right? Like that's
notoriously Penn State. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So the 2016 whiteout, which is the one Penn State obviously upset Ohio State. They started slow in that one, but 17 off the rip, they came out hot. 2018, I think they were down a little bit early and then staked a comeback and then had that 12-point lead before they lost it.
No, against Ohio State. No, they were no. I think we were up 14-3 or something like that.
Oh, okay. I have that confused. Yeah, yes, you're right. So it was 14-3. They tied it.
Yeah.
And Penn State came back and scored again. So yes, then again they came out firing.
2019,
2019, they were 21-0.
Yeah,
that was when I started to hate Ricky Ronnie because I called him Mr. Park the Bus because he'd go up 21-0 and you wouldn't hear from him the rest of the game. Notoriously did that at times that season. 2021,
Michigan.
That was a little more back and forth, I think. No, that was Auburn.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Auburn. But I felt in control that whole game, that whole Auburn game. Yeah, and 2022 was Minnesota. We blew their doors off. 2023 was Iowa. That was 100-0, I think, or something like that. And Drew threw for 95% completion percentage or some bullshit.
Yeah, that game was close early, and then they separated. I think it was 14-14, and then the final was that was a blowout. And then last year was 34-0, and that wasn't even close. I think it was, that was in the 20s to something at half, I think. So they've gone out to good starts in these games, and they're going to have to do that. Now, the thing is, Oregon is a team that can obviously play from behind with that passing attack, but you'd rather be ahead than behind, just because we want to be running the ball and playing physical and milking the clock. So, yes, Penn State getting out to this early is a huge key. I know, I feel like that's such a dumb thing because you'd want to be up early in every game, but it just does feel like when you look at these two teams' identities on offense, Penn State just wanting to control the clock and keep it away from that explosive Oregon offense, getting up early does actually matter.
Yeah, and I do the more. I mean, again, this might be kind of pretty obvious, but the more you are ahead as Penn State, the more you can rely on the run game, the more you can wear down the Oregon defense. Whereas if you're behind and you're slinging it, right, you're not you're just letting their defensive line tee off and stuff. So I mean that's one of the main reasons I think you want to be ahead is because you can lean on your strength and just you'd rather try to keep a lead probably, especially now with the team built the way it is versus, like you said, with Ricky Ronnie. And then defense was always really thin back then too, right? The Ohio State game in 2018, I mean, we were, I don't know, probably rotated 13 guys or something, right? And they were just gassed by the end of the game. And Dwayne Haskins is throwing screens that go for 80-yard touchdowns because our guys can't run anymore. So those days are over. But I think that was Haskins.
I will say that there's a lot of similarities to that whiteout in this one, that 2018 one. An early season whiteout, Penn State didn't look too good in non-con for the most part that year heading into that game. People were skeptical of them. Ohio State was breaking in a quarterback with his first big road test. So, there's some similarities there. Hopefully there's no 4th and 5s at the end of it, though.
Just pass it. For the love of God, just throw the ball if there is. Okay. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't care.
One thing I will say. Yeah, for sure. I'm interested if now you obviously want just Penn State to win ahead and be comfortable, but if this game is tied and Penn State has the ball and they can't get past the Oregon 40 and there's 3 seconds left, they've the idea of Gabe Nwosu trying a 60-yard field goal has come up. Ryan Barker's been really good, and I think if Penn State wins this game, Ryan Barker will be a reason why. 9 for 10 with the only miss being a block is very good, and I think he's a crucial part of this game. And I think Nwosu's punting with field position also is, and hopefully, I know some people in the chat have brought up, don't get blocked. He's a little slow with it, but I don't know. Like, that's something to think about if they try a 60-yard field goal for the win. I'm sure if he makes it, it would be quite the reaction, and if he doesn't, it would also be quite the reaction. So,
what was how far was Ryan Barker's USC last year in the overtime? It was in the 40s, I guess. I guess it wouldn't have been more than a 45 or so, because unless they went backwards.
Because USC missed their field goal or whatever happened, and Penn State, you started at 25, right?
Right. So it's not going to be more than a 42 or 43, I guess. But
I think it was like 40 or 39, something like that.
All right. So not that far at all. Oh my God. So okay, let's, if you're tied, just do it. Like, who cares, right? Because you're going to go to overtime.
Yeah, tied, yes.
What if you're down by 2? You still do it? Like,
that's what I was getting at. Like, I don't know. The concern is it being like such a horrible kick, and then people are just like, why don't you just try the Hail Mary at that point? Like, him just either spiking it in the back of someone's helmet or it being, 20 yards to the right.
Okay, but let's say it's a 55-yard attempt.
Harder to swallow when you're down versus it tied.
Yeah, but let's say in practice,
Barker takes it.
I don't care whoever does, but let's say it's a 55-yard attempt, and in practice, let's say they make 60% of them. Okay, even in practice, if they're making 40% of them, what percentage do you think they're making Hail Marys at from 45 yards away? 5%, 10%?
Yeah, I don't know, 5%.
Right? So, I mean, you give yourself a better probability to win, even if it looks terrible. I think it's still probably, out of those two options, the higher probability option. So do that.
Yeah,
I do. That would be terrible.
I do think Penn State actually possesses a higher probability of converting a Hail Mary than most teams, because I would freaking put Reynolds, Rapollet, and Dinkins out there with Hudson and Pena.
Yeah.
I think their ability to win that jump ball mosh pit is higher than most teams, actually. I'm still not saying it's close to automatic, obviously, but I think they have a little higher chance than most teams if you went with that personnel. But
all right, even if that's 25, even if it's 25 versus 40, I think you're better off kicking the field goal, I guess. But what an unenviable just be up by 1 at that time and be able to kneel the stupid ball, right, or whatever.
Yeah, that's the plan. But yeah, when I look about predicting this game, there's so many different ways this game can go. Like, I can honestly see the reality where Oregon just comes out and it is a track meet, and Penn State's overwhelmed, and it's kind of bad. It's 35-20. I think that possibility is there. In a whiteout game, I don't take it to happen as much as a normal game, or if Penn State was out at Oregon, but I think it's there. I also think there's Penn State actually, the crowd and the environment gets to Dante Moore a little bit, and Penn State can stake themselves to a 10-0, 14-0 lead early, and then they're just hanging on and surviving for the next 3 quarters, and the final is 23-20, 24-21, something like that. Freaking 17-14. I think those realities are there. I honestly think, though, Penn State is desperate to win this game, and I don't think We made a lot out of what this team was the first 3 weeks. And I'm wondering if they were as disinterested in that with this early season whiteout as we were. And maybe we do see a different team. The team has always shown up in whiteouts, even when they were incredibly overmatched. Like you look at the 2013 game, they won in 4 overtimes. And, that Michigan team was a lot better than that sanctioned Penn State team. And the 2014, they went to freaking double overtime with the national champions, and that team was bad. That was a really bad Penn State team. They've gone to the wire with teams they shouldn't have. The only year that it was kind of an uncompetitive loss in a sense was that 2015 Michigan game, and it was a noon whiteout.
That's the only noon whiteout ever, and Saquon was a freshman, and they stunk that year. So.
Yeah. So when you take that out of equation, I have a hard time seeing Penn State getting blown out in a whiteout, and they do always play over their heads. And I think these teams are close enough where Penn State playing over its head in a whiteout could carry them over.
Yeah.
I think for Penn State, this game being played under 29 is a big thing. Somewhere in the 20s, this game has to be played kind of similar to that Auburn game from a couple years ago. So I'll give Penn State 27-21. I think, as I mentioned, Ryan Barker, I think he makes a couple good field goals. I am not overly confident in this, but I'll be honest. If this was at noon and it's just a game, or even 3:30 and it was just a game, I think Oregon wins. But Franklin makes sure he gets this team up for the whiteout because, 1, usually a national broadcast. 2, it's his biggest recruiting weekend. Those are 2 things he doesn't like to screw up. Team always shows up for these. So I am giving them the benefit of the doubt. And as of today, they are favored. And we know how it goes with Franklin favored versus not favored.
Yeah.
The records are, even though that sounds ridiculous, it seems to matter. They are favored. So I'm going to give them a slight edge, but I could talk myself out of this by the end of the week. But as of Monday, I'm feeling optimistic to start the week.
That's good. I have no idea. I have no confidence in betting anything or predicting anything. I hope we win, and that's all I can say. I don't know. I do think they have to play desperate, though. They have to play like this is a must-win game, and they have to. I don't know. Penn State has to find a way to take that underdog mantle and be the team that believes that they shouldn't win, or not that they shouldn't win, but that they need to win, and that everybody is against them, and whole world is against this kind of thing. That is how they will win if they can do that, and they can't be complacent like they were the first 3 games. Like that ain't gonna work, and they can't be disinterested. But again, like you said, I don't think whiteouts are not the type of game that they get disinterested in. I don't care what the score is, just fucking win the game. That's it.
I mean, amen to that. I think I'm hoping there's not a level of copium by us by just saying, oh, it's the whiteout, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because it's what I've seen historically under Franklin so far. So
yeah,
I'm going to.
That's good. No, I agree with that. That's a pretty astute point.
Give them the benefit of the doubt, but I could see us being.
Yeah. Yeah. I did see somebody already.
We know how he's been in big games, but the whiteout has seemed to be.
Yep. Now we haven't won them all, but again, has been shown. Yeah, we haven't won all the whiteouts, but again, they beat the spread almost every time, right? And they play games a lot closer than they should, even when they don't win. But I did see already people are talking about how, if we're 10-2 and we beat Indiana, that's a good win, so therefore we're going to make the playoffs. That's garbage. You cannot think like that already. Jesus Christ, you've not played Ohio State or Oregon yet, and you're already conceding losses. Those people are losers and need to grow up and go earn something in their life. This is the game that's in front of Penn State. They have to work like hell to win this goddamn game. So anyway, all right.
Yeah. No, I think the desperation is there. So we'll see.
All right, brother. This was good. We'll talk to you later.
Be back next week. All right. Yeah.